through broken stars. 1. Mission and crash. The rescue mission was a suicide run, but orders are orders. Corporal Jace Morrow had seen Helen back, fought in countless wars across the galaxy, rescued more than his fair share of stranded civilians. But none of those missions had ever landed him on a crazy alien planet with a dying ship and a ticking clock. The sky was a swirling mass of colors he'd never seen before, the landscape a bizarre mix of alien plants and rocks. The explosion had triggered an avalanche, sending tons of rocks tumbling down the mountainside. They were trapped. She cried out and threw her arms around him, burying her face in his shoulder. "Who did that?" he asked, his voice low. "And why?" Viola sighed, her gaze dropping to the ground. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but I can't tell you that." "Why not?" he pressed, his patience wearing thin. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with sadness. The soldiers listened intently, their faces grim with sympathy and anger. Around them, the alien wilderness echoed with the roar of battle, the clash of weapons and the cries of the dying. But through it all, their bond remained unbroken, a testament to the power of trust and understanding. In the end, it was their shared trauma that brought them together, but it was their empathy and courage that kept them going. Then one of them turned to Jace, his visor tilting once more. He said, "Your ship is destroyed," he stated, more than asked. "Can you defend yourself?" Jace met his gaze, his jaw set firmly. "I am a soldier," he replied quietly. "Of course I can." A smile touched the corners of the visor guy's lips. "Good," he said, clapping Jace on the shoulder. "Because we have company. Because," she said softly, "it doesn't matter. What matters is that we stick together now. We have to trust each other if we want to survive." But before they parted ways, Viola and Jace shared a quiet goodbye, acknowledging the bond they'd forged in the crucible of their shared experience. Their parting hinted at hope for a lasting peace and future cooperation between their two worlds. As their species came together, they knew that the journey had been long and hard, but the destination was worth it. They had learned that even in the darkest of times, trust could be the guiding light, and that empathy and understanding could be the bridge between worlds. "I'm sorry," he said, holding her tight, trying to calm her down. They also found the bodies of her people, men, women, and children, all lying dead in a row, their faces frozen in masks of terror. With renewed hope, they struggled towards it, their bodies battered and bruised. As they got closer, they realized it was a crashed spaceship, its hull torn and smoking. Suddenly, figures emerged from the wreckage, their faces hidden behind visors. They were armed and dangerous, and they looked ready to fight. "Don't move," one of them barked, his voice distorted by his helmet. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Viola stepped forward, her voice echoing strangely in the vast emptiness. "Wait," she called out, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "We mean you no harm. We only want to help." The soldiers hesitated, their weapons still trained on them. Then one of them lowered his weapon slightly, his visor tilting upward in a gesture of curiosity. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously. "We come in peace," Viola replied, her voice unwavering. "We need your help. Our people, they have been attacked." The soldier stiffened, his visor snapping back into place. "Stand back," he ordered, his voice hard. "You're too close." Viola didn't move. "Please," she whispered, her eyes pleading. "We need your help. They're dead." The soldier hesitated, torn between his orders and his conscience. Then he took a step back, lowering his weapon. "All right," he said, his voice softer now. "Tell me what happened." Jace felt a surge of anger and determination. "I will avenge your people," he vowed, gripping his rifle tightly. Vela placed a hand on his arm, her touch surprisingly warm. "That is not the way," she said, her voice firm. "We must unite, not divide." And in that moment, Jace understood what she meant. They were both victims of war, both haunted by the ghosts of their past, and maybe, just maybe, they could help each other heal. "It's okay," she whispered. "We will be all right." Just then, the ground split open, and a geyser of toxic fog erupted from the fissure, engulfing them completely. When the fog cleared, they were still alive, but the shuttle was gone. All that remained was a pile of twisted metal and a few scorched trees. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice filled with despair. He looked around at the alien wilderness that surrounded them. "We start walking," he said grimly, "and we don't stop until we find help." Jace scanned the horizon. checking for any signs of danger. "This place is crazy," he muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. "How can we leave?" The alien looked around her, her eyes wide with fear. "We have to go now," she whispered urgently, "before they come back." "Who?" he asked, turning to her. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "My people," she said finally. "They will not rest until every one of us is dead." Before he could respond, the shuttle exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. He grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a large rock, shielding her with his body. When the coast was clear, he released her and motioned for her to move towards the crashed shuttle. And that's exactly what happened when the Orion's wake went down. Now he's here to pick up the pieces and hopefully find some survivors. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the sound of buzzing insects. They had to ford streams of molten lava and clamber over mountains of solid rock. And all the while, the alien woman, who introduced herself as Vela, used her bioluminescent suit and energy shield to help guide them through the darkness and protect them from harm. Days turned into nights, and their journey seemed endless. Jace began to lose hope, but Viola kept him going, sharing stories of her people and the beauty of her homeworld. In turn, he told her about Earth and the life he'd left behind. But his own shuttle takes damage on entry, and he's forced to crash land. He unbuckled himself from the seat and pulled off his helmet, gasping for air as he surveyed the damage to his shuttle. It wasn't much, but it was enough to render it immobile. Then he heard a noise, a faint cry for help, coming from inside the wrecked ship. So he set off through the hazardous terrain to see if anyone else had survived. Jace found the source of the noise inside the twisted, metal hull of the Orion's wake. A pink-skinned alien woman was trapped under some debris. Blood trickled down her temple, mixing with the grime on her face. Her chest heaved with each breath, her eyes wide with fear. She looked at him and tried to speak, but only a garbled noise came out. "Hello," he said slowly, extending a hand. "I'm here to help." Her eyes widened and she tried again. This time the words formed. "Help," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Please help me." He nodded and quickly got to work, moving the debris away from her, all the while keeping an eye on her. She winced as he shifted a piece of metal, blood staining her white tunic, a darker shade of red. "Almost there," he murmured, reaching for the strap of her backpack. He unbuckled it and slung it over his shoulder. It was a strange, almost otherworldly shade of pink, like the color of a nebula. He turned back to her and offered his hand again. "Come on," he said. "We need to get out of here." She took his hand, and he helped her to her feet. She swayed, almost fainting, and he caught her just in the nick of time. "Easy," he soothed, helping her to steady herself. Her fingers tightened around his arm, her nails digging into his skin. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. They stumbled out of the ship together and into the harsh sunlight. As they neared the shuttle, the ground beneath them trembled. They journeyed through a surreal landscape of towering crystal forests and bizarre alien creatures. One evening, as they sat around a small fire, Jace asked her about the explosion at the shuttle. Then everything changed. They found evidence of the enemy, their footprints in the dust, their weapons discarded beside them. After many days of travel, they finally saw something in the distance, a glint of light on the horizon. And so the story of the massacre unfolded, the tale of a brave people driven from their homes and slaughtered in cold blood. They stood side by side, Viola and Jace, facing the enemy, ready to fight for their lives and the memory of the dead. When the smoke cleared and the battle was won, rescue ships arrived, carrying with them the promise of safety and a new beginning.